to the candy shop.
I taste just like candy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy. 101 ways to make your love and your life sweeter. And it is episode 4, y'all. What? Woo! Anyway, I'm Candace Harper, Love Coach, and you'll notice that this week I'm alone. If you've been joining us, if you've been coming in every week, my partner ASKFORCANDY is not with us today. He had some personal stuff to take care of, but you know what? For those of you who are on Facebook Live, I wore my big hair so I could take up more of the frame, and I'm in the middle, and I'm holding out my elbows so I can really take up the space. If you are listening to Armed Radio on your TuneIn app, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are in the garden, which is the perfect place to talk about love on Armed Radio Global, or joining me live here on Facebook, I see people come in. I see Joe, I see Frank, I see Tom, I see Elizabeth, I see Rebecca. Hi, baby doll. Anyway, I'm so glad for those of you who have already joined in. I'm going to be even more glad for those of you who come in later. I want you to know that today we have a lot of show, and we also have a call-in number because, as you know, this is a conversation. So as I said, I'm Candace Harper, Love Coach. I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful women mainly, but I can teach you men too. So we're going to say powerful people so that we can all have win-win romantic relationships and shameless singlehoods. But make no mistake, dating and relationships can be extremely difficult. But love is easy. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you how. But I want you to interact with me. I want you to comment if you're on live. And also you can watch live. I believe it's in on the Armed Radio page, the Armed Radio group. If you're in there, you can be watching live. Or if you come to my actual page, this is public. So if you come to Candace Harper, my private page, you can be watching live too. Anyway, the call-in number is 1-800-508-5431. So that's for all your comments and questions for those of you who are not on your computer and not watching live. Those of you who are watching live can definitely comment. And if you're watching later, you're watching the recording, you can comment and just put hashtag #AskForCandy, because what I'll do is I'll search it and I'll look for your comments later. And if you have questions and things like that, I'll answer them the next week. So, like I said, there is a lot for us to cover tonight because since it's just me, I decided to give you guys a really special treat, and hopefully you're down for it because I really feel like this is like a big thing that I'm sharing here. So as you know, I'm a coach, so I have a curriculum, I have a system that I teach. I actually teach audacious intimacy, and I'm going to tell you exactly what that is and what that all means and why it makes your love life amazing. Whether you're single or not, your love life can be amazing even when you're single. Isn't that crazy? Because what it comes down to is your relationship with yourself. How much do I love myself? And it doesn't matter whether you have somebody with you or not. If you have a great relationship with yourself, you have a great relationship. It's how the world works. So I am going to teach you all about audacious intimacy and the 5 tools in order to create audacious intimacy so that you can then go through the 10 steps to create win-win relationships. Now, we're not doing the whole 10 steps because by the time we get through the 5 tools, I mean, I feel like we only got an hour. I wish we had all night. I wish I could just stay with you guys and we could just hang out and enjoy each other. But we're going to take up this hour. We're going to talk about the 5 tools. And then what are we going to talk about after that? I have a whole list of things. It's very important. Oh, and I want to find out what your answers are from the question last week, which was, what is the most loving thing that you did for Valentine's week? Because I think the thing we put forth is what are you going to do? What's going to be the big loving thing you do for Valentine's week? I'm going to tell you mine, and you'll get to share yours, and you can share it in the comments if you're watching live. And then I'm going to go into the audacious intimacy, the 5 tools that are going to get you there. And then I'm going to do things I love, which is a segment that ASKFORCANDY came up with that we did last week, where we both talked about and plugged products of people that we know, people that we care about, that we just absolutely love and we know are great. And I see Julie, I see Angela, I see Brad, I see D'Angelo. He says, you look great. Oh, thank you, my love, my D'Angelo. D'Angelo is an amazing makeup artist. He's out in LA. And for those of you who are listening on the radio, I am going to be interacting a little bit with the Facebook Live peeps, which is why I also invite you to come live, because I don't want you to think I'm just a crazy person calling people out. I see Mark Lupa. What in the world? Another Angela. I got my 2 Angelas. I love it when I have Angelas. What's up, girl? So then, after we do things I love, we're going to do the 3 ways to make our love and life sweeter, as always. And then I'm going to say goodnight with our sign-off question. And you know the sign-off question this week is a little bit juicy, I think. Well, it's not salacious. It's not sexual or anything like that, but it's going to make you go deep. And that's what it's all about, right? Ooh, go deep. Anyway, that's what it's all about. That's what we're here to do. We're here to like really delve into what goes on in our love lives and how do we make them sweet and juicy and wonderful. So let us begin. Okay, let's first answer the question from last week. If anybody who's on live wants to comment in and tell me what is the most loving thing you did this past week in honor of Valentine's Day. And it doesn't have to be that you spent a lot of money or anything like that. As a matter of fact, for me, and also you can call in 1-800-508-5431. So for me, this Valentine's week, I did something. I mean, even though I'm a love coach, I always say I'm the coach on the court because like you, I struggle with certain things and vulnerability is one of them. And actually just telling, someone intimately how I feel about them. And I'm not necessarily talking about someone I have a romantic relationship with, but you think about your family and your friends and the people that you deal with every day. How often do we actually just say, I love you and I care about you, or I want the best for you? And, we say it, yeah, but, whatever, like it's not an everyday thing. That's why there is a Valentine's Day, right? So in order to celebrate Valentine's week this week, I chose to tell a couple of friends who I just hadn't told what my feelings were for them. I told them how I felt, and it felt great. Like it was good to just communicate that, not wanting anything in return, just so they know it, a couple different friends that I haven't talked to in a little while. I just, whatever. I wanted to share that. What's up? Becky says, I like your bracelet. Oh, thank you, Becky. Thank you, my love. It's my little nod to Wakanda because I saw the Black Panther movie this weekend. Anyway, so yeah, let me know. What did you guys do to kind of show a little bit of love, celebrate and honor Valentine's week? You can comment live, or you can call me 1-800-508-5431. Or if you're shy, I know some of you out there are very shy, you can also comment later and comment with hashtag ASKFORCANDY. You know what? I gotta say, now I did the first show completely by myself, and this is episode 4. I did 2 with Askia, and now on my own, I'm like a little nervous again. Is that weird? I don't know, whatever. We're just gonna do what we came to do. So now I wanna get into audacious intimacy. So like I was telling you, this is basically the program that I coach, and it's a 6-week program. It takes time. I've condensed it so that it's, in a nice little package that we can fit in our little hour right now, so that you can just kind of get a clear idea of what it's about and maybe get some nuggets for yourself and, take them back to your relationship, take them back to your singlehood, take them into your real life and see how you can start to maybe apply it a little bit and see how you can transform, work relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, using this system and using these 5 tools, and just basically getting an awareness and getting connected to these 5 things. Now, what I would suggest, if you are here because there really is something that you want to work on, if you're here because you're on Facebook Live and you just love me, then fabulous. Thank you for being here. I love you too, and you're welcome. If you're here because there really is something you want to work on, if you're listening on the radio and the TuneIn app, and there really is something that you want to transform, I say get out a pen and paper, because I don't normally give out this information for free. I might give this out on a webinar at some point, but this is some valuable information, and I don't want you to miss it. If you want it, if you need it, write it down, get it down right now. So the 5 tools, let's go through. Now I call them my C words because they all magically start with C, and it's nothing filthy for those of you with a dirty mind, but they all do kind of start with C, because there's clarity and purpose, core happiness, communication, and courageous compassion. That's a double C. But let's go through these things, because I know you're probably saying, oh, yeah, I know about all that stuff. But let's, like, what we don't do, and I know for myself, what I didn't do for a long time, especially when I was training to become a coach and, going through different transformational classes and things like that, I discover every time I'm learning, every time I read a new book, every time I take a new class to improve my coaching abilities, I discover some things that I might know in my head, but that I'm not necessarily applying in my life. Because that stuff, it's like, you can think you know it, but there's blind spots. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know, how we're affecting people, how we're impacting our lives, and that's not our intention until we get into some level of awareness about it and actually start practicing what we say. Like when our actions and our words start to match up. Like you'll have people who are like, oh, I'm never late, but then that's the person who's always late. But in their mind, they're telling themselves a story. Like we do that with really important things in our life all the time. So, of course, when it comes to that big transformational stuff, it's like, no, I'm very communicative. Meanwhile, every time I get mad, I shut down and don't say anything. That's what a lot of us do. I'm myself included. And I'm sure there's still some things there that, I need to work out. We all need to work this stuff out. So now, number one, the first tool for creating audacious intimacy. And when I say audacious intimacy, I'm not just talking about like a sexual relationship. I'm not necessarily just talking about romantic, but we're putting it in the context of a romantic relationship because that's the ruling relationship, right? If we can master that, we can master everything. So the very first tool for creating audacious intimacy is having clarity and purpose. Let that sink in. Everybody needs clarity and purpose, and not just for your relationship. Actually, you need it for yourself first. And by clarity and purpose, what I mean is like what motivates you and drives you in a sustainable way. What is your why? Like why do you feel like you exist? Why do you choose to feel like you exist? What is important to you? Who are you? Like not just, I want to be with somebody who's 6'6" and makes six figures and, all that stuff. Like, who are you as a human being? Like clear purpose. What are you here to contribute to the world? What do you feel like you can contribute to the world? And I have said this before because I do believe that our purpose is where our talents and our passions and our challenges all come together in like a perfect storm. And, that's a great way to sort of figure it out if you haven't figured it out. But if you want to be someone who knows how to create intimacy with other people, you got to be just so like in touch with that. And it might change. Whatever you decide your purpose is on this earth, that might change. You might, as you grow, as we get older, we go through different phases of our life, how we see ourselves, that changes over the years. So it's not something that is static that you have to stick with, but it does have to be something that you feel committed to, that there's skin in the game. Like, I know that my purpose on this earth is to teach people how to love themselves and to teach myself first, right? I know that's my purpose. So I'm so connected to it that everything that I do is it's a choice out of that purpose. So if it aligns with teaching someone how to love themselves, if it aligns with supporting myself and loving myself in an accepted, non-narcissistic way, then that's how I know to do it. It's how I know to drive forward. It's how I know how to be motivated. What is the reason for my life? And, and I like to argue that we are all multi-purpose. Like, there's the reasons for our existence that we may not have any idea of. Like, you might be an organ donor and God forbid if something happened to you, you might be the cause of someone else living. And that's a purpose that you don't necessarily, you choose it because you choose to be an organ donor, but you don't know that that's, what your fate will be or, how it's going to result for you. But you can know, you can choose a purpose in a way that you are actually choosing your life's result and what you're contributing to the world. So first and foremost, like, let's get hyper clarity on that. And so, the thing is that it's all of this stuff, all of this transformation stuff is not a light switch that you turn on and off. I mean, there are times you can just get it. What it really is, transformation is gradual. It's like being the butterfly in the cocoon, or the caterpillar waiting to turn into a butterfly in the cocoon. It's why I liken it to a yoga practice. It's because we put these things in practice. So let's say through this conversation, you're starting to feel like, oh, well, I'm not really sure of my purpose, or, I don't really know what that means or how to connect that with who I am. It's time to just start exploring it and start your transformation and start, seeing how you can get clear on that. So, always be looking for that clarity, always be looking for just an assuredness of what your purpose is, what you're trying to do, and where you're trying to get to. It works for you individually, it works for your relationships, it works for any groups that you ever get involved in. If you work with a group of people, if you work with a team, the most important part of working on a team is that you have a purpose and that you have a why, and you know what the hell you're doing and why the hell you're doing it. Because when we don't know where we're trying to get to, there's a lot of infighting and misunderstanding. And obviously, the bigger the group gets and the less people really are on the same page as far as what the end goal is, the more conflict there is. I mean, just look at the political situation today. I'm not going to go into politics because this is not a political show, but it's a perfect example of like when there's just so many energies going in different directions, what happens is conflict and resistance and resentment and nothing good. And the same thing happens between two people. The same thing happens with yourself. When you don't know who you are or where you're going and you're not clear about why you're here or what's important to you, it's like you're searching for your spine in the weeds. You don't know. You just don't know what to do. Maybe you do drugs or, and I'm not saying everybody who does drugs has no purpose. What I'm saying is that sometimes that's the choice rather than getting clarity and actually, getting active about what I'm clear about. The choice is just to kind of check out, maybe be, on the couch or whatever it is. We've all been there. I've been in that stage of my life where I just want to be on the couch. Trust me. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and feel free to answer here on Facebook Live, or you could just write them in your notebook and have it be very personal. It can be very personal to you. I don't want you to feel like you have to publicize this process, because it is a very personal process. But here are the 3 questions for the very first tool for audacious intimacy. What is your purpose? And if you don't have an answer, it's time to just start the exploration. This is not a time to make yourself wrong or to shame yourself or to feel bad about it. Just explore it, figure it out. If you're young, you got a lot of time. So, take your time. That's your purpose. So if you know it, then there must be something that you're doing, that you're expressing it, and that you're giving it, you're putting it out there in the world in some way or another. Maybe you're a firefighter and you're saving people. I see new people have joined. I see Natasha and Wayne and Pascal. My friend Wayne is actually a police officer. So there you have it. I'm assuming that's part of his purpose, and being part of public safety and, helping people and all of that stuff. He's showing it. D'Angelo says, my purpose is to write and inspire. I love that. And you know what? D'Angelo's my friend, and that's what he does. He writes and he inspires, and he's a great makeup artist too, which, I'm sure that aligns with the inspiration, because he's an artist, a creative. So think about that. What is your purpose and what are you doing to express it? And are you grounded and connected to it? Meaning that, do you have skin in the game? Are you like I was for a long time, where I was like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be helping people, but I don't know exactly how I want to do it. I know I like to talk a lot, clearly. I know I like to write. So I'll write a blog maybe a few times. I'm not really sure. So what I didn't have at that time was a clear connection to my purpose. And so that's why I say it's clarity and purpose. I'm purposeful and I'm clear on what I need to do in order to express it. So that's what you want to be working towards. Tool number 1 for creating audacious intimacy. You start with yourself, clarity and purpose. On to tool number 2, core happiness. Now, I know a lot of you out there are like, shut up with the happiness. I choose happiness. Look at the world today. There's so many horrible things going on. How are we supposed to be happy? The world sucks, whatever. I got depression. I got this. I get it. Trust me. I get it. You're talking to someone who has survived depression and anxiety. I totally get it. There's a lot of things that happen in this world that absolutely go against what we feel, what we believe to be the right thing, and what we would like to have happen. A lot of things in this world that we don't understand. This is a scary world that we live in. Clearly, it is. But here's the thing. Number one, our experiences, how we experience the things that go on around us, are absolutely a product of what we believe and how we navigate the world. So, if your belief is that, things are wrong or things are shameful or, whatever it may be, I don't want to get, really specific about it because for everybody it's different. Then when it happens, it's going to be something that takes you off of your center and maybe messes with your core happiness. But the reason that I say that, it's possible for everyone to have core happiness is because what that is it's really just acceptance. It's not that you're bouncing around like the Easter Bunny all the time. And it's not that you're Pollyanna and making a silver lining out of everything, but it's at your core, you have gratitude. And at your core, you can focus on the things that are working enough to get you through the things that aren't working. That your default is, it's going to work out. Your default is trust and stability. Your default state is, I want to make this good, even when it doesn't seem like it's right. So when we have that, it's like, you got to look at, do the conditions of your life decide your mood? So if something's not going my way and it changes my mood or, makes me crabby or makes me angry, because it's not going the way that I planned for it to go, then I got to look at, it's not that that's wrong, but I got to look at, do I have core happiness if I let the external dictate the internal? When really, when the internal dictates the external, like there's very little that can happen that has you out of who you truly are and has you out of your ability to find peace. Right? If I let my way of seeing the world and my condition be affected by things that I can't control, then it's like I take no responsibility for my experience of life. But when I say that internally, the way that I am going to perceive things and the way that I'm going to sort of deal with what happens around me is something that I am choosing. I choose it. I get to decide what it looks like and what it feels like and whether it's acceptable or shameful or, something I can work with or a challenge as opposed to just adversity. We get to decide that. So if you can get to a point where you get in your awareness of when you let the challenges take you down compared to when you let them grow you and make you stronger, and that you decide from your core to have a good experience, like deciding from your core to have a good experience and having that be your default. And I hope I'm not rambling this because I really wanted to like resonate and make it clear. You people on Facebook, please tell me if I'm making this too hard to understand. But if you internally decide how you're going to perceive everything, internally decide how you're going to allow life to happen around you and how you're going to flow with life, it's a completely different experience because we all get the same sort of, we all don't get the job at some point. We all don't, win at the game at some point. We all have someone pass away. We all go through health problems. We all deal with that stuff as human beings, right? But then there's some of us, like his name is Nick. It starts with a V. I can't remember his last name. No arms, no legs. He's a motivational speaker, and you see him a lot. Like someone who you would think is just fraught with hardship. And he's one of the most energetic and happy and self-possessed people that you'll ever see. And he speaks to thousands about how you can motivate and do things in your life and make a difference in your life. So that having that ability to have that core happiness. Now, if you don't have core happiness, that's not a reason to put yourself down or to shame yourself, because then you're just basically keeping yourself stuck on the hamster wheel of unhappiness. But having core happiness is what facilitates this, what I'm talking about, this audacious intimacy, like at your core being so magnetic because you determine, you get to decide how you perceive the world and how you cope with the world. And you're confident in that. And that is so sexy. Like No matter what happens, I can deal with it. Like, I know how to deal with it. And even when I feel like I don't know how to deal with it, I have trust and faith that it's going to be okay. And there's nothing more stable and attractive and nothing more connective than being able to say to someone, look, we got this. And that comes out of having core happiness, core confidence. So here are the questions for you guys, which you're welcome to answer. I see new people have come on. I see Denise, I see Chaim, I see Vanessa and Melinda. Hi, my people, I love you. And everybody listening out on the radio, I love you guys too. So if you are taking notes and you're involved in like writing these tools down and you're working on the questions, this next set of questions for core happiness is, number one, do you feel happy at your core? Now that, you might have bouts of depression sometimes you might feel some sadness, sometimes you might feel some challenges. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about core happiness, being able to just, flow with the challenges and face adversity in a way that is powerful, basically. And then the next question is, do you know what it takes to shift your mind state? So in the times when you do feel really sad or do feel really down, do you go into a place of like hopelessness? Do you give up? Or are you someone who's like, you know what? This is tough, but we're going to make it through. That, it's just one of those things. Like when you really want to create audacious intimacy with someone, and audacious intimacy is important to you, being able to be that person who is just, and I'm not saying you always have to be a rock, you can't ever cry tears. Tears are very important. And it's a very powerful thing to be able to cry your tears. But what I'm talking about is just being able to shift that mind state and actually look at it like, okay, I'm feeling sad. Like the other day I'm feeling sad right now. So I gotta be able to like, look, well, why am I feeling sad? Like, what am I telling myself? What happened? What's going on? Well, there's this and there's that and there's this in the world, all things that I can't control in this moment. There's nothing that I can do about them. And my sadness absolutely can't do anything about it. So just being able to observe ourselves, observe our emotions is a big thing. And that is how we connect with other people too. It's like, I own my emotions. I take responsibility for them. I don't have to blame the world. I don't have to blame you. You can't connect with someone while you're blaming them for your feelings. Even if it feels like whatever they did was so shitty. You can't blame people for how you feel or how you perceive it or what you make it mean. Even if it's like, they cheat on you or they're abusive or any of those things, it's like, we have to choose. We have to choose whether or not to be victims of someone else's behavior. That's a choice that we make. I hate to say it, but it is. And then the third question is, where do you tend to focus your energies? Towards the negative things or the more positive things? So those all fall under core happiness. And to have that for yourself. Core happiness comes from like really being able to explore those questions and get into it. Whew, you guys, we're only at number 2. It's already 8. There's so much information here. I don't want to like skimp on anything, but I do want to say, like, I want to check in with everybody and give you guys a moment to kind of catch up. I know I'm doing a lot of talking and I don't want to just like talk you to death about it. If anybody wants to come in on Facebook Live, if you want to talk about any of the questions, if you want to answer any of the questions about feeling happy at your core, if you're battling depression, any of those things, like I know a lot of stuff comes up when we're talking about these things, but this is the second tool in the 5 tools to create audacious intimacy. If you're out there listening and you want to call in, it's 1-800-508-5431, and we can definitely talk about it and take your questions. If you're watching Facebook Live and you want to comment, please comment and just, let me know what your answers are to the questions, how you're feeling, what's coming up for you. If you want to share, I know it's in-depth stuff and some people are very private. At the end, I am actually going to give you a way to get in touch with me directly, personally, to ask any questions or make any comments, or, if something came up for you and you want to talk about it and, say it's a very vulnerable thing, you're welcome to do that. You can inbox me on my page, Candace Harper Love Coach. All right, so now number 3, communicate with generous, vulnerable authenticity. This is a hard one. And I know a lot of us think that we do communicate because we talk. I always thought I was a communicator because I talk a lot. But being a communicator, someone who communicates with generous, vulnerable authenticity, like that's huge, because so many of us are walking around with our guard up and trying to protect ourselves from God knows what, the past, things that we've dealt with, the abuses we've been through, the things that we've seen on TV that we don't want to have happen to us. Like, you know, we all just walk around so guarded all the time, or being wrong. I don't know about you guys, but I'm big on like guarding myself from being wrong. I don't want to be wrong. So, you know, to be vulnerable and authentic sometimes means admitting that you made a mistake or admitting that you're wrong. And it's like, that can be one of the hardest things to do. Nobody wants to get kicked off the island, right? Nobody wants to admit that they've done or said something that's wrong. So this is a little bit of an excerpt. Some of this stuff too is from my book, which I haven't released yet. But like I said, the book is part of the curriculum for my coaching clients. So what did I say? What does it mean to you to give of yourself? This is part of generous vulnerability and authenticity. Does it sound like sacrifice and overwhelm and saying yes when you really mean no? A lot of times when you say the word vulnerability, people automatically think that it means, you know, being nice to people, saying yes, being soft, being weak. A lot of times people go there, but being able to actually be authentically vulnerable is one of the strongest things that people can do. And that's why people so rarely do it. So it says, the most effective and life-changing thing we can do for anyone in our lives is to let them know exactly where we stand. I wrote that. I mean, not that it's so prolific, it's just true. Like, letting someone know exactly where you stand is one of the most loving things you can do for someone, even if they're negative feelings, even if you're like, I don't feel like we get along. I do not like who you are as a person. At least they know where you stand. And, you know, granted, that's not that's a little bit of a toxic thing to say to somebody, but, you know, when you share that and you share that with an openness to be able to maybe discuss it and maybe own your feelings as opposed to making them wrong for why you don't like them, then there's some room for growth. And maybe that means, you know, the relationship needs to end and you need to say goodbye, or maybe it means that there just needs to be a conversation had. Like, I don't understand why you do what you do. You don't understand why I do what I do. But without that willingness to really get vulnerable and say something that might piss somebody off, or might, you know, change their life, or might make them think differently, or might get you kicked off the island, that is a hugely scary thing to do. And we rarely like to do it, but I tell you, when we can do it, that's what creates intimacy. That is what creates intimacy. In the woo-woo spiritual world, they like to say into me see. So vulnerability and just being able to say what's there for you is how you know, that's how you show into you. That's how people get to connect with you. It's not just about getting naked together, right? So let's see, what else did I write here? Contrary to what most people believe about vulnerability, it does not mean sacrificing yourself or crying at the drop of a hat or necessarily being soft. It actually takes a great deal of strength, because sometimes it means admitting that we were wrong, scared, irresponsible, ashamed, etc. Sometimes we have to admit those things, right? Sometimes we got to let people know. Oh, I see Brandon. Hey, Brandon. Brandon just joined. He says, hey, sexy Candace. Thanks, Brandon. Hey. And authentic vulnerability is knowing how to share exactly what's on your mind without being callous or hurtful, but in a way that other people can love, respect, and find irresistible. It's taking a stand for yourself. It's responsibility and ownership of your feelings. And a lot of this comes down to is like just owning how you feel, whether you, you know, without judging it. Like, you feel how you feel, and it's, you're not judging, and without being attached to it, knowing that maybe you feel how you feel because you're perceiving something in the wrong way, or you feel how you feel because, you know, the way you feel yourself or whatever. But it's the willingness to own it. Like, this is what's here for me, and I'm sharing that with you. I'm letting you know, and that's authentically who I am. Also, with the authenticity, it goes back to the clarity of purpose. That's how we get to be authentic, when we're so clear about our why, and our purpose. Like, when we're clear about that, it's so easy to just like say, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. This is what I want. And I don't have to attach it to you. I don't have to force you to give it to me. You don't have to be what I choose for you. This is what I choose for me. There's nothing sexier than when someone is just like, this is who I am. Take me or leave me. Leave me? Okay. You don't want it? That's all right. Because there's so many people out there that will. There's nothing sexier than that. You know, and maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys find it sexy when someone says their representative or pretends to be one way when they're really another. I don't find that sexy at all. And I don't find dishonesty sexy. I don't think that, putting on a facade, which that's one thing about social media, is that it's so easy for people to put on a facade of happiness, a facade of vulnerability, a facade of, happy with this relationship and whatever. But, when we're face to face and we get real with each other and actually say what's on our mind, that's connection. I mean, that's what love is, especially when we can do that and accept it from each other. I mean, I have a best friend. I don't know if she's on Facebook Live. I don't think she's on the Facebook Live right now, but she's somebody who I can rely on, that I can just say whatever it is that's there for me. And sometimes it's about me. Sometimes, I make it about her, but whatever, we have an interaction, and sometimes we get mad at each other, but we know it's like, we're sisters. We're always going to be friends. It's always going to be cool. And that's what makes our relationship extremely intimate, because we understand each other and accept each other. We see each other. We see who each other are, and we accept each other. So, that's number 3 in creating this audacious intimacy. So far, what have we done? We got clear and purposeful. We got clarity and purpose. We got core happiness, and we got communicating with generous vulnerability and authenticity. So now, what are the questions for generous vulnerability and authenticity and that kind of communication? And you guys, like I said, you can answer in Facebook Live, or you can call me at 1-800-508-5431 and let me know what you think and what's coming up for you. Even if you're like, you know what, bitch, stop, because I've been through this and that and this and that and that. Even if you're attitude, please call me, because I would love to talk to you. I would love to talk you down off of your ledge and get you back to your core happiness. So the questions for communicating with generous vulnerability and authenticity. Number 1, what are some ways that you express vulnerability? If you're not going to answer live, if you're not going to engage, that's fine. Because like I said, this is intimate, private, personal stuff. So feel free to write this question down and answer it for yourself. Put it in your journal. Everybody needs a journal. I don't care if you're a man, you need a man journal. You need a man diary. So number 1, what are some ways that you express vulnerability? Number 2, how often do you communicate when something does not work for you? How often do you let people know when something doesn't work for you? And one thing I noticed too is that when you're dealing with someone who doesn't speak up for themselves and you speak up for yourself, they resent you for it. I had this crazy roommate. I don't want to tell tales out of school, and this was semi-recent, so it's not going to be any of you people who are on here, because there's some of you people I've lived with too. But, just was someone who was so passive aggressive, and would never admit to her needs. Like, just would never just say, this is what I want, or could you, or can I? And so when I would do it, she would turn it, she would, like, how dare you ask me to do that? She would take it as an insult, because she was so busy trying to be nice and trying to pretend that she was nice, when inside she was seething and hating me. Because she, I guess expected me to read her mind, expected me to know what it was that she needed. This is all hindsight stuff. It's like in the moment, you're like, what's wrong with this person? Why are they slamming doors? And that sort of thing, it's like, it's so not connective. I mean, it's like the anti-intimacy, when we're not willing to say what's there for us or just ask for what we need. It's like, it's the killer of intimacy, actually. It's the opposite. So how often do you communicate when something does not work for you? Number 3, are you willing to share who you are? So we do all of this work in the beginning of my coaching program, getting clear and purposeful and knowing why I exist. I know why I'm here. I know who I am. And now if I want to be intimate with someone, whether it's one or a group, I got to be willing to share that. I got to be willing to let people know. That's why I shared it with all of you. What my purpose is and why I'm here and, why it's important to me. That's intimacy. Like now you see me and you might judge it, you might see it a certain way, you can believe it or not believe it or whatever, however you choose to perceive it is totally all about you. That has nothing to do with me. But that's how we get to know each other. That's how we connect. And so that's number 3. Are you willing to share who you are? So those are the 3 questions to just kind of write down, answer on here if you choose to. You're welcome to if you like. But we got to keep moving. I can't believe how fast this hour is going because I still have 2 more. So the 4th tool is courageous compassion. Wow, this one's big. Because this goes back to like I was talking about, it's where it's just not about just trying to be nice. It's not about being nice with people, but compassion is extremely important. Authentic compassion though, and it takes a lot of courage. I wrote, love can be fearful. Loving, understanding someone, especially in the times that we don't think they deserve it. So, oftentimes, especially if we're in a love relationship and we're angry, or, even friends, family that we're angry at, coworkers, it's like, how do we find that courageous compassion? And it can be terrifying. And most of us just don't do it. Like we just don't even bother. We either ghost or we kill them off emotionally. There's that thing where it's like, all right, if somebody's toxic in your life, just cut them off, cut them off, cut them off. But see, that's the problem. It's like we're so quick to do that. And I'm not saying there aren't some people that you just don't need in your life. I mean, that goes without saying. There's people that just, they're not there for support. They're not there to support you and they don't want any support. They're going to bring you down. And they're usually, got some issues going on in their life that they haven't dealt with and all of that stuff, whatever. But what I'm talking about is our everyday, moving in and out of like with our coworkers, with our friends and family, and with someone that we've chosen to love in a romantic relationship. So, especially when it comes to dating, like the ghosting and the killing someone off emotionally, it's like, we stop ourselves from being able to have the growth that can come from being compassionate for that person, and then also being communicative in a vulnerable and authentic way, and then finding resolution, even if resolution means that we don't need to be together anymore. I think in the spiritual world, sometimes they call it a conscious uncoupling, which is like, whatever. It's so like hoity-toity, but that's basically what it is. It's like, just because we talk and just because we're compassionate with each other, that doesn't mean that we're not separating or that we're ending our season together. And also, if we don't want to end our season together, we have to find that compassion. I don't understand like these people who stay in these like long marriages, my parents included, where it's just like they're at each other constantly. Like, I'm not going to leave you for nothing. I'm not going to leave you. I'm loyal as hell, but I'm going to put you through it. I'm going to make sure that you rue every freaking day you spend with me. So there's no compassion there. So let's say, what did I say? We ghost, we kill them off emotionally, we stop speaking to people, we fake it. Like I said, yes, we often can put up a facade of being nice, but I hazard to say that being nice is the opposite of love. The willingness to show deep love and compassion is a result of practicing the previous 3 tools, like I said, but it's also a willingness to release our defense mechanisms, our triggers, and our emotional survival techniques. And that's what all that is when we can't find the compassion, when we have to win the argument, when we have to be right. The willingness to break the ice after a conflict, that's been a big challenge for me in my life. I used to be terrible with ice breaking. Like I would get in fights with people and I just like, you'd have to come to me because I've already killed you off. You've been dead as far as I'm concerned. But if you come with an apology, especially like back in the day in my 20s, come with an apology and a beer and, we'll smoke a cigarette, we'll hang out, everything's cool again, right? We're back to being friends, but you got to come to me because I'm not going to break that ice. But that was showing a lack of compassion. Like, it's like not letting the other person be a human being and not understanding that their motivations and the reasons that they do what they do are different than mine. And that is a huge part of intimacy, is understanding and being okay with the fact that the way that person thinks is different. And that's okay. What their methods, their habits, the way they see the world, it's okay that it's different than the way you see it. Even if you love each other and you're married to each other, if you live together, it's okay that, she folds her towels to the left and he whatever, folds them to the right and only likes it this way or that way, like all that stuff. And that's a minuscule thing. Obviously, that's minutia. But even when it comes to the big things, it's okay to see things differently. And it's okay to let other people see things differently. And it's okay to be compassionate with someone that you don't agree with and that you're arguing with, especially if you want to create intimacy with them. Because just being able to say, I accept you for whatever faults I see in you, and I admire you for the strengths and the great things about you, that is the key to love and intimacy. That's it right there. So if you can't find the compassion, tool number 4, you're in a little bit of trouble. But here are the 3 questions to inspire compassion. So where in your love life could you immediately apply some compassion? Is it with yourself? Is it with someone else? Compassion just means understanding. It doesn't mean letting someone abuse you or toxifying your life. It just means that you understand the person. You take the time to understand. And if understanding them means leaving them, then that's what it means. But compassion is just getting to a place of being willing to understand. And can you think, number 2, write these down, can you think of a time from the past when compassion would have been in order? Like, think of any relationship that didn't work out. Think if you've ever gone through like a horrific divorce, in as much as you're like, I left this monster. You know, she was like a she-devil, a succubus, like whatever names you can call this horrible person that you chose to marry. Like, even if you've gone through that, like, where could compassion have sort of just mellowed it out? Where could compassion have kind of just taken the air out of it so that the whole process could have been maybe just a little bit easier, maybe just a little bit of a headache, maybe a little bit less of a conflict? Just something to think about, not to rehash or make yourself wrong. It's just like, it's how we get self-aware. It's how we like, you know, let ourselves off the hook and just kind of get it and understand ourselves and take responsibility for the future. So number 3, what are some ways that you express courageous compassion by offering understanding over fear? So what are some ways that you already do it now? What are some ways that you can do it in the future? All right, I gotta go fast because we're running out of time. It's already 8:49. Oh my gosh, we're only 8 to 9. Anyway, Beth joined, Jeff joined, Deanna's joined. Hi, my loves. I'm so glad that you're here. Everybody who's listening on the TuneIn app, everybody who's in the garden, Armed Radio Global, best place to listen about love. D'Angelo, very important point. When that Aries and Taurus flames up, I see red. I hear that, honey, because he, like D'Angelo's talking from the point of astrology. And so, yeah, it's hard to find the compassion sometimes when you're astrologically incompatible, you know, but, and it's a place of belief. Like if you're someone who believes in the tenets of astrology and you see yourself and you identify yourself a certain way and you identify others in that certain way, like being able to find the compassion for someone when you have them in an identity and you have yourself in an identity is very difficult. And we all do it. Like we all sort of create these identities for ourselves. And, you know, whether, you know, I'm an Aquarian goddess and it's who I am. And so that means that I'm creative and I'm peaceful and, you know, everything I touch turns to gold. So if I decide that's who I am, anything that's out of the realm of that, I'm going to have a little difficulty having compassion for. But yes, thank you. I love. So very last one, I want to make sure I get this in, is contribution. Contribution is that's like the keystone of intimacy. All these C words. You got to let people contribute to you. You got to be willing to ask for help from somebody that, you know, you're not paying money to. Like, just, it goes back to vulnerability. You got to be able to let someone else advise you, even if it's somebody that you think may not have any good advice for you. I call her my 6-year-old yogi. I have a little 6-year-old that I sometimes take care of. She's given me so much good advice about things. I mean, obviously, it's not from a place of like knowing the world, but just like her simplicity and how she views the world and even how she does yoga. It's like, if I watch how she does it, my life is so much happier. It's simple. It's simple. So advice and contribution can come from places that you wouldn't actually think they would come from. Leadership comes from places that you wouldn't actually think that they would come from. But if we don't let anyone contribute to us, and this is something like I claim it. I don't know how many of you single, independent, survivalist, thrivalist women out there will claim this with me. But I know for myself, for the longest time, you could not tell me anything, because I already knew it all. You couldn't tell me a thing. I already had life figured out, especially when I was working in TV and I was like making good money and I was on my own and doing whatever I wanted, whenever the fuck I wanted to do it. You could not tell me anything. Never mind the fact that my love life was miserable. Never mind the fact that I was like, you know, just struggling to try to figure out how to really connect with people because I had, you know, money and I was taking care of myself and I didn't rely on anybody. There was nothing you could tell me. You couldn't contribute to me. When meanwhile, there was a lot I could have learned back then. If I could go back to then and know what I know now, I mean, how often do we say that? But that's all out of, you know, when do I let people contribute to me? Have I ever let people contribute to me? Do I let people give to? It's so important to let people give to you. And whether that means asking for help or just, you know, taking their advice and stop being an I got it girl and all of that stuff, like the shutting down, you know, when the other person has an argument, all of that stuff is like the anti-intimacy, right? So here's the 3 questions for that. And I got to go fast. I got to do this so fast because I only got a few minutes left. Do you have someone in your life who is your counsel? Not someone who tells you what to do or co-signs all of your BS, right? Not someone who's trying to boss you all the time. And not someone who's like along for whatever like cockamamie ride. Like, you know, when you want to come and you're bitching about that man or you're saying all this stuff about your wife and you have the co-signer who's like, yeah, you know, she's a bitch, or yeah, you know, you need to drop him or whatever like that. Those are your co-signers. And there's nothing wrong with those people. They love you, they, you know, but they're not going to help you grow. But do you have someone who helps you tap into your inner knowing, like that core inner knowing, that intuition, that wisdom that we have that we sometimes ignore when we're in our ego? Like, do you have that person? So ask yourself that question. This one only has 2 questions, luckily. And how often do you ask for help from someone who you are not paying or otherwise in charge of, who, you know, is not an employee or whatever? How often do you just say, you know what, buddy, I need help with this? Or lover, you know, wife, husband, I need help with this thing. Can you, you know, help me with it? Do you have the time? Can you offer this to me? Can you hear me out? Can you talk to me about this? You know, can you just be a listening ear? Whatever it is. Can you help me to understand this? Can you clear this up for me? Any of those questions, like get into that practice, because that's what intimacy is all about. We're running out of time. Okay, so that's the 5 tools. Those are the 5 main tools that I use in my coaching system, in my coaching program. Of course, you know, when you're really in my program, we get into forgiveness and, you know, all of this different kind of stuff that really supports clearing yourself so that you can be vulnerable, clearing yourself so that you can be clear and purposeful and not shaming yourself and, you know, not listening to the negative inner dialogue and all of that stuff and getting all of that out of the way. Of course, that is a big part of the course that we don't have time to go over right now. But as a gift to you guys, if you've been listening and you're like, I really want to like go through this program, or if you just want to like learn more about it, you can inbox me on my business page, which is Candace Harper Love Coach. Just send me a message. We'll talk about it, you know, whatever. There's no obligation to buy anything. That's just what it is. Okay, now what are we doing next? What are we doing next? This is intimacy. Oh, things I love. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys about this. When it comes to the purpose thing, go to Spirit of a Woman, Be the Tree, Rites of Passage Collective. Go to their business page, learn about that program. If you are a woman in the 5 boroughs of New York City or plan to come to New York City for a period of time, go learn about that program. Because if you really want to go into an in-depth program that's all just about purpose, or it's about a lot of other things too, but where like you really will find your purpose, it's about some of the other stuff that I talked about. And with a community, a group of women, as opposed to one-on-one coaching, that is an amazing program. So Spirit of a Woman, Be the Tree, Rites of Passage Collective. That is the thing I love for this segment. And then the 3 ways to make our love life sweeter. Start practicing those 5 tools that I talked about. Like, even if you don't call me and we don't have a discovery call or a connection call, start practicing. Hopefully you wrote those questions down. If you join the Creative Love Collective, at some point I'll post them so that you can actually just access them, and just start looking for ways that you can start figuring that stuff out. So you can learn how to really have intimate, emotional, connected relationships with people audaciously, powerfully, right? This is about being powerful in this culture, this society that we live in. Okay, number 2. is send me a direct message on my business Facebook page. You want to get life and love a little bit sweeter? Message me. Message me. I'll make your life sweet. You'll get a complimentary coaching call, definitely. If you don't want the call, you can at least, if you want to ask me a question in the messages in a much more private kind of setting, please feel free. If you want to slide into my DMs, and just get a little advice, a little text advice. I don't go really in depth, in the messaging, because I don't think that that's a good way. Like, that's not very intimate. But at least if you just want to get a little, what do you think I should do, or something like that, definitely message me. We could have a complimentary call if you like for an hour. And then the third one is do something that is outside of your social comfort zone. Strike up a conversation with someone that you find incredibly attractive. Now that goes against, I'm not saying pick this person as your soulmate because they're good looking. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is overcome the fear of just talking to people and just, breaking the ice and being vulnerable and sharing yourself and being who you are around somebody that may intimidate you. Just practice it, because there's nothing to lose. You're only losing if you don't try, right? If you don't try to practice it. So yeah, someone you find incredibly attractive, you could actually tell someone what you're feeling from your heart and not your head, like what's really in your heart for them. Or book a trip to a place that you never imagined going. Anything, just get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Make your love and your life a little bit sweeter in some way, whatever resonates for you. Now, here is the final question. We actually made it. We're going to get everything in, which I'm amazed, because I thought I wasn't going to make it. I'm sure there's more I could have talked about, but you know what? There's next week. And next week, maybe we'll have Askia back. We'll see how he's doing, whatever. He might want to jump in with some stuff. But here's the sign-off question. What is the number one dating relationship rule that you refuse to break no matter what? The number one dating and relationship rule that you refuse to break no matter what?
Hey, wake up.
I think that I just got my notice that we're about to, I got 40 seconds. So answer, comment either here, hashtag AskForCandy. If you are listening, come online, come on Facebook so you can comment on this video later on and figure it out. We're going to talk about it next week. I'm going to give you my answer. The number one dating relationship rule you refuse to break no matter what. Now remember, until next time, never forget you're a love machine. If you ever feel like you're not getting the love you need, just make more. You are a love machine, baby. Joe Savino, an intimate DM. I will try that. Thank you, Joe. I'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Those of you on TuneIn, bye. The TuneIn people just left. The Garden people just left. Facebook Live people, thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. And I will see you next week. All right. Don't forget, love machines. All right. Bye now.